welcome to the Villain Report. I'm Pastor Scott Villain, your host, and we've got a lot to talk about this Friday, June 30th of 2023, concerning the freedom that many children around the world are being denied this 4th of July weekend of 2023. This morning, we're going to once again sound the alarm and send up the flares and ring the bells and shout from the rooftops a warning like no other warning. This morning, we're going to be examining President Joe Biden's child trafficking border and why the United States border is right now, as we speak, facilitating child trafficking, and just what child trafficking actually consists of, and why you, as a United States citizen, need to be awakened to the horrors that are now being executed each and every day at the U.S.-Mexico border, and how your tax dollars are being spent, and why we, as United States citizens, are unknowingly being made complicit to this child slavery industry. And if you just happen to be a God-fearing, Messiah-following, cross-bearing Christian, then this morning's Villain Report broadcast is even more important for you to hear. Stay with us as we pull the curtain back and expose what evil lurks at President Joe Biden's child trafficking border. We've got a lot to talk about this Friday morning on the Villain Report. Stay with us.
Talk to so many other people, ma'am, that are risking their careers, literally, or their reputations. Pilots that have chased these craft that we've seen on video that have no heat signature, that defy our laws of physics. I don't know how much more we can have of this.
So let me be very clear about this. You're saying that the Catholic Church, the Vatican, they know about the existence of non-human intelligence on this planet?
Certainly.
Why is a good Christian one that sticks his head in the sand? What does God talk about talents?
Well, Brianna, the lab leak theory of COVID-19's origins gained tremendous legitimacy this week as the Wall Street Journal confirmed independent reports from friends of the show, Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger, that the earliest outbreak occurred at the Wuhan Institute of Virology in November 2019.
Welcome back, everybody. God bless you, and thank you so very much for joining us this morning. This is a very special morning, and I just want to say we are broadcasting everywhere that we can possibly broadcast at this morning. It is you're even going to find us over at the Holy Impact Ministries website. We're even broadcasting live over there. So if you're wondering over there at the Holy Impact Ministries YouTube channel what the Villain Report's doing on over there, it's just that important. It is just that important this morning. And this is going to be something that you're going to need to hear this morning. You know, it's the 4th of July this morning, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And it's a big deal for a lot of different reasons. We're going to talk a little bit about what the 4th of July stands for and exactly what is going on here in the United States that our founding fathers would roll over in their grave if they knew was happening. And so welcome back, everyone. The first thing that I'd like to do this morning, just to set this up for you, is to help you know and understand exactly what's going on this weekend at the box office theaters and the movie houses. And that is something that is very exciting. And I want to make sure that we have a good handle on exactly what is going on at the box office. Some people don't even know what is going on at the box office. And so it's important for us to know and understand that this is a big weekend for us here in the United States for our freedom and the freedoms that we have here in the United States. And so it's vitally important for us to understand what's happening. And I think far too many Christians in the nation here in the United States and in Mexico don't know what is going on at the border. And this is huge. This is something that people don't understand. You know, we think that slavery here in the United States was done away with years ago. But the truth of the matter is that slavery is not done away with. Slavery is still here. And once again, we need to know and understand that it is still here. And we need to know and to understand that this is no game that we are playing. This is a huge deal that is going on over at our borders. And so, once again, we want everybody to know and to understand this big movement that's going on over at the box office. And we're going to explain a little bit of that to you. And we're going to explain a little bit about what you can do to help us facilitate stopping this child sex trafficking and this slavery that is going on down south at the border. And this affects all children of all over the world. It's not just Mexico. It's not just the United States. It's not just going on in Canada or Australia or India or down in Cuba, in Crimea, in all points east, northeast, south, and west. It is going on all over the place, and the children that are being kidnapped are not just children from one country or the other. And so we need to know these things, we need to understand these things, and we need to make sure that we are sounding from the rooftops what is going on here. And so we're going to take a short break here for just a couple of minutes. We'll be right back, and when we come back, we're going to have everything set up, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. So stay with us. We'll be right back in just a couple of minutes. All right, everybody. God bless you. And thank you once again for staying with us this morning. Once again, we're broadcasting live this morning on Spreaker, and you can download the Spreaker app for your iPhone or for your Android from the Spreaker.com platform. Or you can visit us at theValaneReport.com, where you can also download the Spreaker app as well. We're also live in video format on both YouTube and Rumble on those respective The Valane Report channels. And we're also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Good Pods. And, of course, all of our podcasts are indeed downloadable for free. So if you find any value in the Valane Report, especially this particular podcast today, please, my friends, be sure to share the podcast and the links wherever you can, because it does indeed help us grow the podcast and make it even that much more stronger. So you can also support the Valane Report podcast by clicking the links in the description boxes below, or you can, once again, visit us at thevalanereport.com, thevalanereport.com. And don't forget to click the like and the subscribe buttons if you're watching the podcast on YouTube or Rumble, and be sure to favorite the podcast if you're listening on a podcasting application so that you can find us the next time. And for those of you who are listening for the first time, we podcast at the Valane Report every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. That's Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so, keeping all of that in mind this morning, boy, do we have a broadcast for you this morning. As most of you here in the U.S. know, it is the 4th of July weekend this weekend. And we here in the United States celebrate the 4th of July because it commemorates our independence. The 4th of July was originally established to commemorate the Declaration of Independence, which was ratified by the Second Continental Congress on July 4th of 1776. And it has everything to do with freedom. However, this morning, we're going to be talking about a subject that would literally cause the founding fathers of this great nation to roll over in their graves if they were alive today. My friends, the old saying that freedom is not free is not just a saying. It's a God-ordained fact. As the founders of this great nation knew back in their time, freedom is a God-given, inalienable right. And I'm here to tell you this very morning that today, here in our time, and yes, even here in this great nation, as well as many other nations around the world, there are now children, 5 years old and under even, who are literally being enslaved. And you're going to hear some things this morning that are not going to tickle your ears. And so I want to talk to you about that as well. I'm just going to warn you just right up front here this morning. This Villain Report podcast is not going to be for small children. There's going to be things here we're going to be talking about that are of an adult nature. Now, you may want your children, some of your children, to hear this if they are old enough to comprehend. But I will leave that up to you parents. But I do want to just give a little bit of a warning here that what we're going to be talking about again this morning is going to be of an adult nature. And so what we'll be discussing here this morning is of an evil and despotic nature, and that is so evil and so despotic and so innately wicked that your ears aren't going to want to believe what it is that they will be hearing here this morning. But I tell you the truth. Your ears are in desperate need of hearing this warning this morning, because without it, you will indeed be complicit to this very evil that we will be talking about during the Villain Report podcast this morning. This morning, we're going to be talking about senators and congressmen and congresswomen who are right now, as we speak, in the battle for the lives of children. And not just American children, but children from around the world who are right now, as we speak, being sold into slavery here in the United States. And not only are they being sold into slavery, but they are being mutilated, tortured, maimed, sexually abused, and even murdered right under our very noses. Right under our very noses. And if you think I'm joking, if you think that I'm off my rocker, or if you think that I'm exaggerating or delusional, I dare you to stay tuned for news and information that will literally change your life here this morning. When we come back from the break, we'll pull the proverbial curtain back from President Joe Biden's child trafficking border, and we'll drag the truth out into the antiseptic of daylight for all to see. And at that point in time, it'll be up to you what to do next. Stay with us. Be back in just a couple of minutes.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
What did he do with the documents? Did he sell them to the enemy? No! That's why we have an Espionage Act, not the trick of a president. What did he do? Did he burn them all? No! The government has all the documents back. So there is no violation of the Presidential Records Act at this point. But they throw the book at him. They go after his attorneys. They make them testify. They're attorneys under the crime fraud exception to attorney-client privilege. That means he didn't have due process. His own lawyers were being subjected to interrogations.
And how many genders are there?
I think the gender is expansive, and the definitions are always growing. Today I can tell you, I talk to young people that talk about non-binary as...
More than 5?
I think the gender is not a binary, is what I'm trying to say.
But are there more than 5 genders? I'm just trying to understand. Are there more than 5 genders?
Well, I mean, I think that there was a time where women wearing pants didn't feel like it was appropriate for their gender, and yet I'm wearing pants today. I think that there are ways that we express our gender that are expansive.
Are there more than 5?
I wouldn't subject myself to naming how many genders there are, but what I can say is that gender is a reflection. Number? Excuse me?
There's an infinite number of genders?
But this object was retrieved because it became disabled. Some of these retrieval operations are not extraterrestrial, but they would like sometimes the public to think maybe it was, because the bigger secret, I will tell you right now, is not the extraterrestrial issue. It's these technologies, which an unsupervised and frankly illegal operation have, which is a threat to the national security. Period. This we will prove. And this is a bigger threat, the existence of these in the hands of unsupervised operations that have escaped the oversight of the President of the Office of the President and the Congress since 1956 to 1960.
Welcome back, everyone. The first thing that I'd like to do this morning, again, just to set this up for you, is to help you know and understand exactly what's going on this weekend. Once again, as we said earlier, at the box office, theaters, and the movie houses. And we've spoken about this on our earlier Villain Report podcast earlier this week. But I want to mention it again because the time is here. The time to do something is now here. This 4th of July weekend, a very important film called The Sound of Freedom is going to be debuted. And this film is actually going to be one of many different films and documentaries that will ultimately follow this film that has to do with not just child trafficking, but child slavery. Child slavery that is right now, as we speak, going on here in the great United States of America, of all places. You know, you've probably heard of Jeffrey Epstein by now and his sex island. But I'm here this morning to tell you that what you've heard about Jeffrey Epstein pales in comparison. Literally pales in comparison to what's really going on in the world today, and especially here in the United States. And this child slavery does indeed go right to the top of the food chain concerning our government officials and Hollywood gods and goddesses. This week, I had the opportunity to listen to a video clip from a podcast called Redacted with Clayton Morris, and he was interviewing Tim Ballard, who is the founder and CEO of Operation Underground Railroad, which is an organization of elite military men who rescue kidnapped children from sex trafficking rings around the world. Tim Ballard spent a decade working as a special agent for the Department of Homeland Security, where he was deployed as an undercover operative for the United States Child Sex Tourism Jump Team. He's now working on his own and for himself and along with his team. And they're now risking their very lives to rescue children from around the world and to send the message to the world that God's children are no longer for sale. But what we need to understand here this morning is, just as I stated earlier, this child trafficking industry that literally turns innocent children into slaves goes clear to the top of the food chain. I'd like you to listen very closely to Clayton Morris from the Redacted podcast ask Tim Ballard how far up the chain this criminal industry actually goes. And I'd like you to listen to this morning.
We're just talking about like this sleazy guy in San Bernardino. But how high does this go? Does it go into Hollywood? Does it go into Jeffrey Epstein? Does it go into all of these billionaires that are associated with this? That's the $6 billion question. That's a $154 billion question right there. How high does this go? In your experience, does it go all the way to the top?
It's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. It's one of these hidden crimes, where it's closet crimes. There's no profile for it. It's not always the greasy, dirty, looking dude. There's no profile. And we've arrested over in my career, clergymen, law enforcement officers, professionals of any kind, educators. Like it's everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And I think the Jeffrey Epstein case is a good example of how it is in the highest levels. It's harder to get those guys, because they're so protected. And I do think that's one of the reasons, you don't see more of this, and why there's this campaign to discredit, that it's even happening.
There's really no real way to describe what child trafficking really is, or what it encompasses. When you say child trafficking, people oftentimes think of all kinds of different things. I even had a woman tell me that she thought that child trafficking was about people who kidnapped kids to sell to other people who couldn't be parents, and they were just looking to buy a child to parent. That's not what child trafficking is about, my friends. And for those of you who don't know, it's time to get educated concerning exactly what child trafficking actually encompasses and what it consists of. Listen closely to how Tim Ballard, who is on the front lines, risking his life day in and day out, defines how he defines child trafficking and what child trafficking actually is. Listen closely.
Now, forgive a fairly ignorant question, but I think for people who don't know what this is or the scope of it, when you look at this, what is child sex trafficking? How does it start, and how big actually is it? What does it actually mean when you say that phrase?
So another way to put it is slavery. It's when your person is controlled by another person, and there's three main categories: labor, slave labor, organ harvesting, and sex trafficking. And we work on all three of those. Yeah, you'd be shocked. I run an organization. I'm the CEO, called the Nazarene Fund, which was founded by Glenn Beck in 2014 as a way to help persecuted Christians in the Middle East when ISIS came in. We've stayed there, and the organ harvesting cases there and in Africa are just insane. So that's the scope of it. When you get to the kids, so there's 30 million people enslaved altogether. That's roughly the estimate.
Worldwide.
Worldwide. And those three, and that's men, women, and children. And that's more than ever in the history of the world. We've never had that number of slaves living, ever. In fact, you could count up all the people that were enslaved during the 350-year period of the transatlantic slave trade. You can add them all up, and there's more people alive in slavery today than all of those combined. Wow. So in terms of just numbers, and so not to downplay at all what that slavery was. There's nothing worse, but just in terms of numbers, that's what it is. So with all those people enslaved, the traffickers make $150 billion every year.
$150 billion.
$1 billion off the backs of those slaves. And then in terms of buying and selling people, that number is 32 billion in terms of just the market of buying and selling. The United States, we're the number one consumer almost every year of child exploitation material. And we're in the top 3 for destination countries for human trafficking, but makes sense. The economy of it, right? The people that want it are here consuming it. Well, how about bring the kids to them, which is really easy to do these days because our southern border just facilitates the work of child traffickers.
From here, I'd like to read an article for you from foxnews.com. that helps us to better understand what I mean when I say President Joe Biden's child trafficking border. This, once again, from foxnews.com. Headline reads this, and I want to just pull this up for you here so that you can see it. Headline reads, Hawley urges Wray to make tackling child migrant trafficking crisis a leading FBI priority. Let me read that to you again. Hawley urges Wray to make tackling child migrant trafficking crisis a leading FBI priority. My friends, my question is, why is this not already a leading priority with the Federal Bureau of Investigation? I'll tell you why, because they're too busy investigating parents that go to school board meetings because they think they're terrorists. And I just want to read a little bit of this to you. Again, this is information that once again solidifies what we're being told by Tim Ballard and his team and what is going on concerning these children. It says this. It says Senator Josh Hawley, a Republican from Missouri, is calling on FBI Director Christopher Wray to make ending an investigation the mass trafficking of unaccompanied minors into the U.S. a leading FBI priority after reports of an explosive growth of child exploitation in recent years. The FBI must mount a full-scale effort to locate these missing children and to bring to justice the criminals who are holding them in modern-day slavery, Hawley said in a letter to Wray. Hawley was responding to reports by the New York Times that the Biden administration officials ignored signs of an explosive rise in forced child labor amid an increase in unaccompanied minors coming across the U.S. border. According to Customs and Border Protection, CBP, statistics, the number of unaccompanied alien children, UACs, who arrive at the border has swollen from 33,239 in fiscal year 2020 to more than 146,000 in fiscal year 2021 and 152,000 in fiscal year 2022. So far in fiscal year 2023, there have been more than 70,000 encounters of UACs. When child migrants are encountered at the border, they are transferred into the custody of HHS and then united with a sponsor. My friends, remember that word, sponsor. Typically a parent or family member already in the U.S. We're going to find out very soon, not so much. But whistleblowers and media outlets have detailed how sponsors are gaming the system to move children into the workforce and have them pay back their debts to the smugglers. The Times reported how HHS was unable to contact approximately 85,000 minors who had been reunited with their sponsors. Now, my friends, once again, this news article has it completely wrong concerning these sponsors and exactly what these and who these sponsors are. From here, it's important to know that a sponsor actually is, knowing what a sponsor is and how this actually works with sponsors. Here in this article, it says, oh, well, they're typically a parent or a family member. No. And, this advertisement, talks about, well, it's for slave labor. No. My friends, this article is half right, half wrong. And we need to be aware of it, and we need to be educated about it. I hope and I pray that Senator Hawley listens and hears from and watches this film, The Sound of Freedom, that's coming out this 4th of July. Because if he does, he'll finally realize what a sponsor actually is and how this sponsor oftentimes needs to be put into prison. I'd like us to listen closely to what Tim Ballard tells us about sponsors. And again, this has to do with sponsors at the border.
Enforcing the border is the only compassionate thing because of what we're allowing to happen. So these kids show up unaccompanied or accompanied. They get across and they'll come with a little name. Sometimes a safety pin to their shirts or in their pocket. And it just says, Joe Jones, phone number. Oh, this is the sponsor. This is the sponsor. By law, Health and Human Services, who then takes over from CBP and takes the kids into their care. Usually they'll give it out to a nonprofit who on the border takes them in. I've watched it happen. They pick up the phone. Hello, we have little, Jose Gonzalez here. Here's here's my address. Send him over. Then our taxpayer dollars puts the kid on a bus, on a plane, and takes him right there. Finishes the last leg of the trafficking journey, and now you're in the hands of the sponsor. Now imagine a 5-year-old kid turns up alone in New York City or Orlando or Salt Lake City or anywhere. What would happen? That kid would be taken in, cared for. That kid would be, you wouldn't just give the kid away to anybody. The kid would, you do a background check, DNA test. Like this kid would be protected. You wouldn't just someone show up and say, hey, I'm his sponsor. Okay, have a nice day. It's so disgusting what we are doing. They used to call Trump a racist for his border enforcement policies. It's the opposite. It's what we're doing to foreign children and not treating them with the dignity that we would a U.S. child who turned up alone. I mean, it's the opposite. The only compassionate thing is enforce the border and de-incentivize these trafficking organizations from walking kids across. And when we talk about the economy of pedophilia, knowing that we have this huge population of pedophiles, it's obvious what's going on here. But no one seems to want to do anything about it in this nation.
Once again, my friends, this is from Redacted. It's a podcast called Redacted with Clayton Morris and his wife, his beautiful wife. They have a tremendous podcast. I think it airs at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And if you'd like to see this full interview, I can't play the full interview, but we do have several clips from it. The link to that podcast and this interview that you're watching is in the description box below. And so you can find it there. You can also go to redacted.inc. That's redacted.inc. And you can watch this complete interview. It is, there is so much more here that we're not even able to show you here this morning in this interview. When I sat and watched this interview, it literally made me sick to my stomach. It literally affects your spirit. And if it doesn't put a fire under you, nothing will. Nothing will if this doesn't put a fire under you. And so, once again, just as Mr. Ballard said here, it's your tax dollars, your U.S. tax dollars that are being used to ship these child slaves to their masters, their sponsors. Do you understand what's going on? And just as Tim Ballard tells us, no one seems to want to do anything about it, which leads us to the next news article that I'd like to present to you from the Daily Wire over at thedailywire.com. And once again, the headline reads, Biden administration to end familial DNA testing used to detect child trafficking at southern border. Do you believe that? My friends, let me read this to you. Just let me go over here and let me read this to you. Headline reads once again, Biden administration to end familial DNA testing used to detect child trafficking at the southern border. It says, the Biden administration plans to end family DNA testing system at the U.S.-Mexico border that authorities use to prevent smugglers from trafficking migrant children across the southern border, according to a leaked memo obtained by Just the News. U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP officials are notified that familial DNA contract with Bode Technologies, a DNA testing service contracted with law enforcement and identification markets for over 25 years, will end on May 31st of 2023, and all familial DNA testing will conclude on that date. CBP authorities began implementing the DNA testing program under the Trump administration, following a court order related to the separation of migrant children from their families and evidence drug cartels were using children to create fake family units to sneak illegal immigrants across the border, according to the outlet. The memo also noted that familial DNA collection and testing is separate from FBI booking DNA collection, and the end of the Bode contract does not impact or interrupt collections as part of the combined DNA index system computer software program that operates national databases of DNA profiles from convicted offenders, unsolved crime scene evidence, and missing persons. A spokesperson for CBP did not return requests for comment by the Daily Wire. Immigrant and Custom Enforcement, ICE, awarded Bode Technology a potential 5-year contract at $17.3 million in 2020 after the agency identified 11 locations on the southwestern border where the influx of immigrants became prevalent. Derek Brenner, ICE HIS executive associate director, said the goal of rapid DNA testing remained twofold. First, to protect the children from being smuggled across the border by ensuring that they are with their parents and not being used as pawns by individuals attempting to exploit immigration loopholes, Brenner said, according to Defense Daily. Second, to identify and stop the criminal organizations that are generating these false documents and supporting child smuggling. Okay, so do we see what's going on here? Again, President Joe Biden and the Democratic White House complicit to what is going on and helping these smugglers smuggle these children. Once again, my friends, President Joe Biden's child trafficking border is in full swing with the help of the White House and its lost and inept Democratic leadership that is literally helping to assist, not to stop or to arrest, but to assist the child trafficking industry to grow beyond the $150 billion industry that it is today. And if you think you've heard it all, you might want to put your children in another room before you hear this next clip from the Redacted podcast with Clayton Morris. Listen to Tim Ballard explaining another concept of child trafficking called baby factories. Listen to this.
We have, for example, in Eastern in Western Africa, just last year we took down several what we call baby factories. So what they do is they kidnap usually mentally challenged, mentally disabled young women, and they rape them incessantly, so they're pregnant incessantly, and they have these babies. They take the babies, and the babies are either used for, and these are just I'm talking days old, and they're then taken and used for the witch doctory, crazy, this satanic ritualistic stuff. They're used for pedophiles, or they're probably more than the other two, used to sell their organs. I mean, you can sell a pediatric heart on the black market for about $250,000, and people will buy that because they don't want to wait in line. And so we took down these organizations. The same thing happened in the Middle East. ISIS was using the same evil acts to fund their operations, especially after they got pushed out of any kind of sovereign territory. And so we've been working in dismantling organ harvesting rings there as well. But it's we've seen it in Haiti too, and like when they lose their usefulness, these they're not people to these traffickers. They're like cattle. They're nothing. And if you're sick, we've had reports of they just kill the child right there, or use them for their organs. So it's messy, it's horrible, it's evil. And thank you for even asking the question. Very few people will ask these questions because it is so hard to talk about, but not talking about it just pushes further back the solution.
I can't tell you what this does to my spirit to hear these things. I can't tell you how much sleep that I've lost after hearing and knowing and studying these things out. To know and to understand that such an evil even exists within the hearts of men is to come to a different place in the spiritual warfare that we as Christians already know that we are in. I can't help but hear that scripture ringing in my ears over and over and over again, that it grieved God's heart that he had ever even created man, because the heart of man was evil continuously. And just as we're told, my friends, our Messiah made it very, very clear that the last days would be just as they were back in the days of Noah, when God brought the end of man forth through the great deluge, because the heart of man was nothing but evil continuously. And my friends, you wouldn't believe the people that are involved in this. It does go to the top, and I think most of us already know that. We've already heard about Epstein. We've already heard about Pizzagate. We've already heard about all of this nonsense and rumblings of all of this nonsense that the mainstream news media threw a bucket of cold water on because they don't want you to know. Again, this is a $150 billion industry, my friends. The airline industry doesn't even make that kind of money. This almost doubles what the airline industry made. That's what kind of money is going into this. Do you think that they don't have people at the top that are pulling strings? Now, I don't know why in the world a Democratic president would stop DNA testing at the border, other than the fact that this is a $150 billion industry. And it does reach to the top. This is a wicked that surpasses the wickedness that we see in our public schools and the sexual mutilation of our children, even without a parent's knowledge or consent. This surpasses the wickedness of naked men and women dancing in the streets at a pride parade. This surpasses the foul stench of drag queens reading homosexual stories to our children during story hour at a school or a public library. This goes far and above and beyond any evil that I have ever heard of or seen in Hollywood horror movies on the silver screen. And I want to be clear here this morning about how much of this film, The Sound of Freedom, is actually true and factual. You know, every movie always takes what they call creative license in doing all that they can to add more artistic style to the story or to elaborate on things or to make the film more interesting or entertaining. But I want you to understand just how much of this film, The Sound of Freedom, actually deals with the truthful events that Tim Ballard has actually witnessed with his own eyes and lived through. Listen closely to how accurate this film is, according to Tim Ballard himself, who oversaw this whole thing.
The movie really starts off with you in progress. It's how true, how much creative license was taken with this script?
Well, first, thank you so much. Thank you for being here and supporting us. And and you told me, NRB, you told me. I didn't believe you, but you told me this would happen.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, these are your people.
This is amazing.
And the reason I'm asking you, because the story is almost so bizarre, you go, they must have made a lot of this up.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you what, every bad guy is real. In fact, the movie was cut because it was too long. And remember we talked about they had cards at the end telling you every bad guy's real, every kid is real, and it told you where they are today. Wow. So they had to cut it. It hurt, but it was his fault. Way
to go, Eduardo.
I told him, you know what, let's focus on the movie, and after that we do a TV series, and then we put everything, right?
There you go. Hey, that's
it's coming, it's coming.
And once again, this film, The Sound of Freedom, is just the beginning, and I want you to know that this is just the beginning, the tip of the spear. There are already other things in the works that are going to follow this film. In fact, there is a film, a documentary coming after this that will come out here in 2023 that the elitists do not want out. And in fact, it's important for you to know and understand that the film that you're seeing this weekend, if you are, and I pray that you are, sometime this week. You probably won't be able to get seats this weekend because it's filled up pretty quick. You probably won't be able to get them on the 4th of July, but you can get them this week, and please do that. But you need to know and understand that it was Disney, Walt Disney, the despotic, wicked hand of Disney, who shelved this film for 5 years. Again, this was done, and apparently Fox was in this. Disney bought out Fox and got the rights to the movie and shelved it for 5 years. And so this movie that you're seeing they've been waiting to try to get this out for 5 years. They had to fight for the rights to get the rights to the film back so that they could show it. Yeah, Disney. You know, the one who is now creating programs on Disney Plus about teenage girls who have sex with the devil, and Danny DeVito and his demon-loving cartoon, the girls that fall in love with demons, and yeah, that Walt Disney, that's the one. That's the one. Shelved this movie, The Sound of Freedom, for 5 years. And so this is a 5-year-old movie. Can you imagine where this industry is right now? You know, we just saw Senator Hawley, again, fighting for what's going and against the child trafficking that's going on at the border. So they know some of this. But I am looking forward to Congress seeing over 2 million people at this particular film this week and knowing and understanding that there's more to this border than what they're being told, as we can read from the news article, and then turn around and hear from Tim Ballard, who's on the front lines every day risking his life. This is a big deal, my friends. This is a big deal. This film, The Sound of Freedom, is just the tip of the spear, if you will. Another 4-part documentary is coming out yet at the end of this year, and it's going to be called The Hidden War. The Hidden War. Be on the lookout for that as well. And it'll be a 4-part. I think they said it's like 4 hours long at least. So this is a big deal that's coming out, and it covers a lot more than even what this film covers. And they actually when they go in to rescue these children, they film everything that they possibly can. And so what you're going to see in the next film is all going to be, it's not going to be a movie. This is going to be a documentary with film showing what they're finding, what's going on behind the scenes. And again, it's called The Hidden War, and I want you to be on the lookout for it because this goes a step further than just a movie. So be on the lookout for that as well. But getting back to what it is that we're talking about here concerning this child trafficking and this child slavery. I want you to listen to what Tim Ballard tells Clayton Morris over at Redacted about what generally happens to children as young as 5 years old. Now, this is not just about kids in their teens that we're talking about. We're talking about, as we've seen, baby factories and kids 5 years old and younger as well. And I want you to listen to this because this will help you to better understand what this really is all about. And this isn't about slave labor, my friends.
Maybe it's not so obvious, and I know this is going to be hard for some of our audience to hear, but I want to hear, and I think it's important for us to hear. You use the example of a 5-year-old. What happens to a 5-year-old that comes in and then gets sucked into this sex trafficking in the United States? They've passed that sponsorship moment. Now they're shipped off. Right. What is the end scenario for that child? Can you give me a couple of sad examples of this?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I can give you there's if you watch Sound of Freedom, you'll see there's a scene. They actually filmed this scene exactly at the port of entry on the southern border where it happened. It's what kicks off the whole journey and the rescue journey. But a little boy had been kidnapped by a pedophile, an American pedophile who lived in San Bernardino, California, and was bringing him across the border. And the Customs and Border Protection officials identified, thank goodness for a wall, because a wall forced him into that funnel where he could be identified. That's walls save lives, right? Border enforcement saves lives. But they got the little boy out. But they discovered all these sex tapes in the van of this man sexually abusing the little boy. That led to raiding his house in San Bernardino, and we found 12 other kids. So what he was doing with them is a real example. When we raided his house on July 4th of 2006, we identified that he had basically a child porn studio built into his house, cameras everywhere. He was filming. He had a little production company, okay, for self-consumption mostly, I think. And he was making videos of these kids. He'd drug them up, rape them, take videos of it. Now, others would then distribute those videos, sell those videos, and then people would come and partake in sex.
You know, once again, my friends, it's difficult to fathom what these children are going through. It literally is difficult to fathom what they're going through. It's difficult to wrap your head around what they're being made to endure and just every day. Once again, once they're done using these kids up and they've had their way with them, they cut the organs out of them and they use them to sell their kidneys or their lungs or their hearts or their bone marrow on the open market around the world. Honestly, I cannot imagine, I cannot fathom how hell itself could be any more terrifying than what these children are being forced to go through on a day-to-day basis. And again, my friends, you know, we have these articles that are coming out. Here's another one. Fox News headline reads, HHS chief unfamiliar with reports that agency can't contact 85,000 unaccompanied migrant kids. This is so in your face, and nobody's doing anything about it. It's just like Tim Ballard said. You know, he's like fighting an uphill battle. him and his men and his team are going into these other countries, and they're trying to rescue these kids by the hundreds, by the thousands, and there's just so many of them. He can't do it alone. They can't possibly do it alone. You know, this is something that that goes under the radar at Biden's child trafficking border. And we need to ask ourselves why. Why are they allowing this to happen? Why are they allowing this there? Why are they stopping DNA testing for children at the border? Why are they making this easier and not more difficult? Why are they reversing what President Donald Trump did to protect these children? Why? Why? You know, here's another article for you. Fox News, illegal immigration now costs the U.S. taxpayers $151 billion a year, new study finds. This is the money that the United States spends on migrants. Illegal immigration now costs U.S. taxpayers $151 billion a year. Why? Because they're giving them cell phones and giving them airplane tickets and bus tickets to wherever they want to go and shipping them off wherever they want. And out of all this money, they can't afford DNA testing for the children? Huh. Isn't that peculiar? Isn't that peculiar? My friends, do we see what's going on here? You know, this just it just absolutely makes me sick. You know, there is nothing else right now that I can focus on. You know, I know it's the 4th of July weekend and everybody's all hyped up and everybody's talking about barbecues and ball games and all of those type of things that we normally think about. I can't think about anything else other than this. I can't think of anything else besides this. You cannot unsee this. You cannot unknow this. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And my friends, as a pastor, I'm telling you the truth. Our Father in heaven sees what we do. And just as importantly, he sees what we don't do. And, you know, I've said this many, many times, especially this week, because we've been talking quite a bit about this. You know, people come to me all the time and they say, you know, why should I be bothered? I'm one person. I can't make any difference. What's my voice going to do? How am I going to be of any assistance to anybody? What difference is it if I go see this movie or not? My friends, if 2 million people thought that way, nobody'd be in the theaters. This is your opportunity to do something. And not just talk about it, not just by starting a conversation, not just by being educated, but by actually becoming part of something that is monumental, that will get the attention of the White House and Congress here in the United States and nations around the world. And my friends, if you live in Canada or Jamaica or the Netherlands or any of those places around the world, this movie will get to you. And it affects you too. It affects you too. What sickens me here in America is the fact that the United States of America is one of the number one purchasers of child sex trafficking and child sex trafficking material, pornography material. My friends, this doesn't need to be. This should not be. And it was stopped, at least attempted to be stopped and certainly slowed down by President Donald Trump. Those processes that were at the border have been removed. Why do you think they've been removed? We've heard about Epstein Island. We've heard about Pizzagate. We've heard about all of this nonsense and the tentacles and where this goes. Are we stupid in the head up here? Are we not getting this? Or do we not understand what's going on here? My friends, this is your opportunity to do something. This is your opportunity to stand. And I beg you, if I could get down on my knees in front of you and beg you to buy a ticket for this film, I would do it. It's that important. It's that important. And if you can't get in on the 4th of July, my friends, you can get in afterwards this whole week. Just get in there this week, this 4th of July week. And if you can't afford a ticket, you can actually go to angel.com, and they will give you a ticket, because people like myself are buying tickets for other people that can't afford it to go see the film. So when you purchase your tickets, you can actually purchase an extra ticket for someone else who can't afford to go. And so there's free tickets there. There's no excuse for you not to go to this film. There's no excuse for you not to go. You can't give me that, oh, I can't afford it. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. Free ticket. Go. There are very few people that can't do this. And there are very few people that cannot be part of this. And I tell you the truth, my friends, your Father in heaven is watching. Our Father in heaven is watching what these United States are doing about this. This is becoming an explosive thing on the world stage right now. Yahovah God has, again, released the clutches of Walt Disney and gotten their decrepit hands off of this film so that it could be shown. And it will be shown, and documentaries are coming out after this, filming the actual process of what they are doing to our children and how these gallant men like Tim Ballard are going in and risking their lives and their families and their fortunes to get these kids out when the governments won't do anything. This is a big deal, we are in the last days, my friends, and if you can't see that, you just simply need to read your Bible, and you need to get down on your knees, and you need to have a conversation. Not with me, but with your God. This is happening for a reason. I am telling you, this is happening for a reason. Get involved. Get involved. You know, there's a passage in the Bible where the men, the women, the children are marked. Everybody who did not lament for the wickedness that was happening in the house of Israel was marked. And that mark was the mark of a cross on the forehead. It's in the Bible. And the angel went through, and the men were to go through that town and slaughter anybody who had that mark on them that was not lamenting because of the evil in Israel, in the house of Israel. Now, that's another whole study that we could get into. We're not going to get into that here today. But I'm telling you the truth, my friends. If you're not lamenting for what is going on in your country right now today, then you are part of the problem, not part of the solution. And I've said it many times, and I'll say it again. I am sick and tired of feckless Christians who sit on their blessed assurance and do absolutely nothing while these children are going through this hell. When we have the opportunity right now to band together and do something. Do something. 4th of July, freedom. Ding, 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 ding. Do you understand that freedom is not free? Do you understand that? We are in a spiritual warfare like no other time, my friends. And it is time now to stand up. And that's what the Villain Report podcast here is all about. That's why we created it. It is to shout from the rooftops things that need to be heard and seen. And I want to talk about how you can help and the importance of being part of this film that is taking place this week. So let's learn very quickly how we can help.
The movie is The Sound of Freedom. It comes out on July 4th. My guest has been Tim Ballard. And Tim, how can people, if they want to help this cause at our rescue, what do people, tell us the website, where can people go to help be a part of this and to solve this problem?
Right now the ask that we have is to go to angel.com and buy tickets. To angel.com, go buy tickets to Sound of Freedom. And then, watch that film and you'll know what to do. And I'd also encourage people to go to the NazareneFund.org, where I'm the CEO, that we're doing that work we talked about with our organ harvesting. And if you remember the Afghani movement, when we pulled out 10,000 people out of Afghanistan in the wake of the abandonment there. So there's a lot of amazing work there. So, but yeah, people need to filter. We want 2 million people in the theaters representing the 2 million children currently in the commercial sex trade. We want 2 million people there on the week of July 4th. And if you go to angel.com, you can buy tickets for your family. but also you can pay it forward and buy tickets for others. So there's been 300,000 tickets purchased already just for other people who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford the film. So it's a really cool program. Last I heard yesterday, Sound of Freedom is outselling Indiana Jones 3-1.
Once again, my friends, these are things that we can do. We can do these things. And again, I just want to say, please go watch this full interview over at redacted.inc. That's redacted.inc. And watch this full interview with Clayton Morris and Tim Ballard, because you will learn even more that I couldn't play without getting into trouble for copyright infringement. In fact, I hope I don't get in trouble for copyright infringement, because we've used so many different clips here concerning this. But this is about a half an hour interview that he does with him, and it just goes on and on and on. So go see the full interview. I have put the link to that clip in the description of this Villain Report podcast, so that all you have to do is click on it, and you can watch the whole interview. And there's much, much more there to learn. And so we will be right back here in just a couple of minutes. Stay with us.
Talk to so many other people, ma'am, that are risking their careers, literally, or their reputations. Pilots that have chased these craft that we've seen on video, that have no heat signature, that defy our laws of physics. I don't know how much more we can have of this.
So let me be very clear about this. You're saying that the Catholic Church, the Vatican, they know about the existence of non-human intelligence on this planet?
Certainly. Why is a good Christian one that sticks his head in the sand? What does God talk about talents?
Well, Brianna, the lab leak theory of COVID-19's origins gained tremendous legitimacy this week as the Wall Street Journal confirmed independent reports from friends of the show, Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger, that the earliest outbreak occurred at the Wuhan Institute of Virology in November 2019.
Welcome back, everybody. And once again, I just want to let everybody know that we are broadcasting live this morning on Spreaker. And you can download the Spreaker app for your iPhone or for your Android from Spreaker.com, or you can visit us at thevillainreport.com, thevillainreport.com. And something else that I wanted to let you know is that if you go over to the Villain Report website, just in case you forget where to get those tickets at, you can go over to the Villain Report website, and the link is right here. And you can just click on that link right down there, and it'll take you there as well. And if you'd like to support the podcast, certainly you can do that. And don't forget to subscribe to the Villain Report mailing address, where we can let you know what's coming up on each one of these podcasts that we are doing every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. We can keep you ahead and keep you abreast and send you the links that you need to some of the articles that we are reading and what we're talking about. Again, that mailing list is at thevillainreport.com, thevillainreport.com. And so you want to bookmark that, and you want to make sure that you have that bookmarked. That's very, very important. And so, once again, you can visit us there at the Villain Report. You can also download the Spreaker app here as well, and you can take us with you wherever you go. They're downloadable. You can download them. You can put them on an MP3, give them to somebody to listen to. We're also live in video format. A lot of people don't know that, but we are live in video format on both YouTube and Rumble on those respective The Villain Report channels. Just look for The Villain Report. And we're also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Good Pods. And, of course, once again, as I said earlier, all of these podcasts are free to download. And so it's up to you what you want to do with them. And, again, my friends, we need the help spreading the word so that people can know and understand what it is that we as true God-fearing, Messiah-following, cross-bearing Christians need to be paying attention to. You can also support, again, the Villain Report podcast by clicking on the links in the description boxes below or visiting us at thevillainreport.com. And so don't forget to click the subscribe buttons and the like buttons if you're watching the podcast on YouTube and Rumble. And be sure to favorite the podcast if you're listening to it on your favorite podcasting app so that you can find us, again, a little bit later on in the week. Again, we podcast Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the morning. And so With all of that being said, my friends, I hope and I pray that I've given you something to take to your prayer closet this 4th of July weekend. I hope you have a happy 4th of July weekend. But again, I hope that this puts a fire in your spirit to stand. I hope that you understand the importance of standing and what happens when we don't stand. You know, all of this is happening because we have not stood. All of this is happening because we've not been paying attention. We need to pay attention. We have the opportunity to do something right now. In this film that's coming out in these documentaries, we're going to be without excuse. And we need to be educated. You can't get in the fight and you can't fight efficiently if you're not educated about where to go and what to do. And as we have said before, my friends, God sees what we do, and he also sees what we do not do. With that being said, I just want to say thank you so very much for sharing your time with me here this morning. This has been a very special Villain Report podcast, and my hope and my prayer is that you will indeed take action. We'll see you Monday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
An estimated 2 million children are trafficked every year, and we can help them. Sound of Freedom is based on a true story about real-life heroes saving kids from the dark world of child trafficking. We know this is heartbreaking and it hurts to look at, but the first step in helping these children is hearing their story. Not enough people know this problem exists, and even fewer people are willing to do anything about it. Our goal is to inspire 2 million people to attend the film's opening weekend, to represent the 2 million trafficked children around the world. To spread the word, Angel Studios set up a Pay It Forward program where you can pay for someone else's ticket who might not otherwise see it. If the ticket price is stopping you from attending, claim your free ticket at angel.com/freedom. Sound of Freedom opens the week of July 4th. Every parent, every adult, and every teenager in America should be there to see it. If millions of us come together today to see this film, we could propel the movement to help save millions of children around the world. And you can send the message that God's children are no longer for sale.